Alright, y'all, this is just my hot take. I don't claim to be any type of expert or know anything. This is just my opinion. So, I've been fascinated with a conversation around divine masculine and divine energy or divine feminine energy. And at first, it used to irritate me because whenever I would see it, it was always in such a heteronormative, oh, if you're a man, you need to be in your divine masculine, which really people meant you need to be a man. Like society tells you, you need to be a man. And then divine feminine, they said, was the opposite. But then as I started journeying on my own and then just interacting with different people, different types of relationships, I realized that, okay, everybody seems to have both of these energies and it looks different in every single person, and it really doesn't matter what sex or gender you are. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it and bring a unique perspective as somebody who's on their spiritual journey and who dates women and tends to attract people who are more dominant than I am and maybe have a little bit either matching or a little bit more masculine energy. And this is apart from how they may present, how they may dress. They could dress more feminine than I do. So I've noticed that balanced and unbalanced masculine energy, it looks the same no matter what. It looks the same or similar in women and men or anything in between. So, from my observation, I realized that balanced masculine energy is productive action, whereas unbalanced masculine energy is unproductive action. You're just doing shit and getting tired for no reason. And then balanced feminine energy is the contrary. So, that is productive inaction, where unbalanced feminine energy is unproductive inaction. Like you're just sitting there and you need to be off your ass. So I wrote out a couple of examples of what I think and from my perspective what it looks like. So unbalanced masculine energy, things that I've seen. And again, these are things that anybody can do. You don't necessarily have to be a man. So when something happens to you and you experience a trauma, you fill up your schedule. I was watching this show where one of the characters, she had lost her father. Immediately, she got a second job despite the fact that she was working full-time already and was a mother. She just started filling up her schedule as a way to run from those emotions, not deal with it. And the second point I put was running from your emotions as a form of avoidance, like doing, that's kind of, the first two kind of go together, doing anything to keep yourself busy and not deal with it. And then also it looks like working hard, but not working smart. Like people have different amounts of energy. So I got to keep in mind that what somebody else is doing that may tire me out doesn't necessarily tire them out. But then also there's another side to it where if somebody's just going all the time and you're literally breaking yourself down and you're doing all these extra steps and all these extra things that you don't even necessarily need to do. And you're literally making yourself sick and not stopping. Just go. And then, so another thing that I've noticed is having an unhealthy expression of ego and avoiding accountability. Like I said, I date women, and I've also had experiences with men, and everybody do the same thing, okay? Like, we know we're all different, but when I'm talking about these examples, it's so interesting that it's very similar. Like that unhealthy expression of ego where you have to boost yourself up. And it's really, going back to the first point, the first couple, a form of avoidance and running from your emotions. Because when you elevate your ego to an unhealthy level, you're avoiding what's deep down inside of you. You're keeping yourself busy, you're putting on this front, and you're really masking as somebody who's so strong and confident and has all this shit, but because it's hiding a weak sense of self and a weak self-esteem, it also causes you to avoid accountability and really not be able to hear people if they, for example, say you offended them or did something and you avoid that accountability. That's what I think is an example of unhealthy masculine energy. And then the fifth point I wrote down was being on some knuck if you buck type shit. Always itching for a fight, always just in the mix. It's just unnecessary motion when you need to just stop. sit down. And so the balanced version of that and using balanced masculine energy would be, of course, being able to get up and start something and take action. It makes me think of Aries energy. You know, they're the first sign of the zodiac, and it's, I think, cardinal. I'm not an expert on all that shit, but I think it's a cardinal sign, and they really represent just the go-getter. I'm gonna go and take action. And I think that's a really healthy example of just getting up and starting something and having that initial motion to just do what needs to be done, but not having so much motion where you're doing extra things that are not necessary. All right, so part 2, unbalanced feminine energy. So what I think that looks like is, of course, you guys probably already know I'm going to say this, but sloth. So laziness. You're not resting because you're tired, but you're just sitting there and not doing anything. It's a lack of motion, lack of action, and you're just kind of stuck because you're unable or unwilling to do the things that you need to do in order to elevate yourself to the next step. And also, number 2, I put mental escapism. So I would say maybe substance abuse could count as that, whereas in the masculine, it could be being a workaholic, but finding a way to either kind of zone out or just mentally avoid certain things. So it's a different type of escapism that is a little more passive. And so number 3 kind of goes along with number 1, repeating cycles, even when you have the knowledge and the tools to get yourself out. Like that lack of inertia to kind of just go a different way and change things. And you're kind of just, and I also think of it as kind of a victim mindset where you're just sitting back and watching things happen and you're going through the same cycles and doing the same things and not doing anything about it. And also number 4, so this is a big one, talking, dreaming, and planning more than executing. So people that are just all talk, like if you're all talk and you don't have action to back it up, or if you have plans and if you have a project and have all these great ideas, an idea is an idea. You need that drive and that motion to actually put it into fruition. Otherwise, what is it doing? And speaking of being all talk, the 5th thing I put on there is itching to gossip. Like, and I don't know if y'all agree with me or not. I think that one is kind of weird and it can kind of go into both. For example, you're monitoring people and talking shit about what they're doing, but not doing anything yourself. Just being a gossip, always being in anybody's business, but that's because you lack the action yourself, unbalanced feminine energy. So then on the contrary, of course, balanced feminine energy would be when something happens to you, something traumatic, you kind of just sit there and allow yourself to process it, but you're not sitting so long that you're just stuck. It's always a fine line, because sometimes I can fall on either side, and it's important to know when, okay, this is not helping me anymore. This is not productive. I might actually need to get up and find something to do instead of just sitting here ruminating and thinking about this over and over again. And so this next point, I'm speaking to myself here because sometimes I'm bad at this. When you're tired, actually stopping and resting, especially when you have room to rest. Like there's no sense to keep pushing yourself to do something when you could just rest. And then when you come back and do it, be even more efficient. And also, if you look at your different generations and different family members, you might even notice that there might be a tendency in certain behaviors and characteristics that were passed down that could be either balanced or unbalanced on one side or the other or both. I know for me personally, I tend to, when it comes to working and trying to get stuff done, I can fall on the more unbalanced masculine side of not stopping when I know I need to stop and then burning myself out. So that's one of those things that I'm always working on and something that I've gotten a lot better at. And I think also a good way to practice that balanced feminine energy is when when you're going on a walk or if you're on vacation and resting and stuff, literally stop and smell the roses. I know that sounds so cliche, but seriously, you don't have to be in no rush. Just stop and feel the breeze. Smell the flowers. Smell the cow shit on the farm. Just stop and take it all in. It's important to be able to stop. Because how are you going to be able to hear downloads from God or source or whatever you call it if you are a busybody and you're in that unbalanced feminine state? You have to be able to stop and listen. Like, that's super, super important. And then when it's time to move your ass and execute something, it's important to be able to do that. So everything is about balance. I had an idea for this topic because I was talking to one of my friends, and I want to give a little queer perspective. So when a man tends to have more feminine energy, or when a woman tends to have more masculine energy, it can be a lot harder to balance them because everybody's telling you that that's not right and that you're supposed to be different than who you actually are. And so I think that's where that mean and cattiness can come from with people with more feminine energy, especially with gay males who don't have any outlets for expression, and they're in communities that aren't safe, and they're telling them that you're supposed to be a man, you're not supposed to be like that. So because it's so suppressed, it can come out as not just, it's okay to be like sassy or have some fire behind you, but that unnecessarily mean or itching the gossip or that. Yeah. And because of the unbalanced feminine, I grouped it as having more talk and like being in the planning stage. That's why I think that talking too much or gossiping and having that catty energy represents unbalanced feminine energy. Because you're really not doing anything, you're just running your mouth. So that aggression and heavy defensiveness from people who have more masculine energy, especially more masculine leaning queer women who are told to be more feminine. So therefore, you already know what I'm saying. I'm about to say the same thing in reverse. They don't have no outlets for that healthy expression. And I think it's hard for people with a lot of masculine energy in general too, because I feel like society values that more than the feminine side. So a lot of times in general, the masculine side comes out unbalanced and as that glorified, you gotta keep going, work. Well, that's really unhealthy. It'll kill you physically, mentally, and spiritually. So it's so important that we also recognize that feminine energy of being able to sit and being able to stop and being able to listen. So that is my flaming hot take on masculine and feminine energy. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's what a lot of YouTubers say, right? But for real, let me know what y'all think and if you have anything to add.